"Sir, please don't go down that hallway." The man in the gray jacket turned and looked at Kenya like she was nothing. "You must be mistaken." Then he walked away. But the millionaire standing behind her, he stopped. And that single moment changed everything. This is the story of how a shy girl making minimum wage whispered 6 words that would save 200 lives, and how the most powerful man in the building almost didn't hear her. Because 11:47 p.m. on November 14th, someone was about to set off a catastrophe that would destroy Sterling Tower. And the only person who sensed it, the one person everyone ignored, the burnt smell hit Kenya Carter like a punch sharp acrid, cutting through the lemon scent of her cleaning solution. This wasn't normal. This wasn't safe. For 6 years, Kenya had perfected the art of being invisible. Eyes down, voice soft, never causing trouble. In places like Sterling Tower, where men in tailored suits made million-dollar decisions, a cleaner was just furniture expected to polish the surfaces without leaving a mark. But tonight, that sensory warning pierced through her trained silence. Her reflection in the 22nd floor window showed a woman frozen between instinct and fear. Down the darkened hallway, she saw him, a man moving too quickly, too deliberately for this hour. Something felt wrong, dangerously wrong. Her mother's voice echoed in her memory. "People like us don't speak up. We can't afford to be wrong." But what if staying silent meant people would die? Kenya's hands trembled as she touched the small photo in her jacket pocket. Her mother's face worn with years of similar work, similar silence. How many warnings had her mother swallowed because speaking up meant risking everything? Last week, Mr. Raymond Turner, the elderly security guard, had shared coffee with her at 2 a.m. in the empty basement. His words haunted her now. People like us see trouble before the important folks do. We're close to the ground. We notice what breaks before it shatters. She'd smiled politely, then not quite believing a shy girl like her could matter in moments that counted. But that heartwarming connection between 2 invisible workers had planted something. A seed of courage, a whisper of possibility. And tonight, watching that man in the gray jacket reach for the elevator button, that seed demanded she choose silence or courage, safety or truth. The burnt smell grew stronger. Time was running out. Kenya made a decision that would save more than just a building. She stepped forward, voice barely above a whisper. "Sir, excuse me." The man turned. His eyes were cold, dismissive. "I think something's not safe down that hallway." He stared for 3 long seconds, then sneered. "You must be mistaken." He vanished into the elevator. Heat flooded Kenya's cheeks. Stupid. She'd broken her cardinal rule, never speak unless spoken to. She'd probably just lost her job over paranoia. But behind her, different footsteps stopped. "What did you smell?" She turned slowly, heart dropping into her stomach. The man standing there wore a charcoal suit that cost more than she made in 6 months. Sharp eyes, unreadable expression. She recognized him instantly, Damian Hayes, CEO of HayesSec, the most powerful man in the entire building, and he wasn't walking away. He was listening. Kenya's throat went dry. There's a burning smell, like overloaded wiring, coming from... Show me." He interrupted, voice firm but not unkind. "Now." In that moment, Kenya didn't know she'd just whispered a warning to the one man who could actually stop a disaster. She didn't know that her 6 words would uncover a conspiracy reaching into the highest levels of building administration. She didn't know that speaking up would cost her everything before giving her back so much more. All she knew was the burnt smell, the terrified pounding of her heart, and the strange sensation of finally being heard. What happens when the invisible finally speak and someone powerful actually listens? Damian Hayes paused when he heard the cleaner's uncertain voice. In his world of corporate espionage, instinct mattered. Right now, his instinct said this woman wasn't imagining things. "Show me," he said simply. Kenya's eyes widened. Damian Hayes, CEO of HayesSec. She'd cleaned his office 3 times in 6 months, always leaving everything exactly as she'd found it. It's probably nothing, sir." "The smell, where?" She led him down the corridor, heart hammering. The burnt odor intensified near the electrical access room. Damien tried the door, locked, but the smell seeped from beneath. He pulled out his phone. "I need someone at the technical room, floor 22. Now, bring override keys." While they waited, he studied her. "How long have you worked here?" 6 years, sir." "And in 6 years, has anyone listened when you noticed something?" She shook her head slowly. "That's the problem with organizations like this. We pay people to observe every square inch, then act surprised when they're the only ones who actually see what's happening." The elevator opened. Chloe Briggs emerged, head of building administration, heels clicking with authority disapproval already on her face. "Mr. Hayes, what's going on?" Her eyes flicked to Kenya coldly. "Kenya, shouldn't you be finishing the West Wing?" "She reported a potential electrical problem. I'm having it checked." Chloe's smile was thin. "I'm sure it's nothing. These old buildings make all kinds of noises. You can go back to your work now, Kenya." "She stays until we verify," Damien said firmly. When security opened the electrical room, they found cables deliberately cut in a pattern designed to cause cascading failure within hours, potentially triggering sprinklers throughout the entire data center. Millions in damage, possible injuries. "This isn't wear and tear," Marcus said. "Someone did this on purpose." Chloe went pale. "That's impossible." Damien turned to Kenya. She looked terrified. "You may have just saved this building. Do you understand that?" "I just smelled something wrong," she whispered. "And you spoke up despite being scared. Most people ignore details like that. You didn't." For the first time in 6 years, Kenya felt truly seen. But Chloe watched them with an expression that promised trouble. Near 2 a.m., Damien approached with coffee. "It's going to be a long night. I should probably go. I've caused enough disruption." "Disruption? You prevented a catastrophe. That's heroism. I'm just a cleaner who smelled smoke. You're a person who trusted her instincts." He paused. 10 years ago, a janitor told me he'd heard ticking from my car engine. I almost ignored him. Someone had planted an explosive corporate espionage. That janitor saved my life. I've spent a decade trying to become the kind of person who listens to whispers instead of waiting for shouts. That's why you stopped when I spoke to you. That's why I'll always stop. The most important warnings come from the people everyone else ignores. It was a moment of connection, 2 people from different worlds finding common ground. But by morning, someone would try to make Kenya pay for being right. When a shy girl finds her voice, those who profit from silence will do anything to shut her up. The next morning, Kenya arrived for her shift to find a notice taped to her locker. "Immediate suspension pending investigation. Reason: unauthorized access to restricted areas and interference with security protocols." Her hands shook, reading it once, twice, 3 times, hoping the words would rearrange themselves. Below Chloe Briggs's signature was a paragraph describing how Kenya had entered a technical area without authorization and created an unnecessary security alert that disrupted normal operations. The other cleaners in the break room went silent when she walked in. Maria, who'd worked there even longer than Kenya, touched her arm gently. "What happened, Mija?" "I tried to help." Kenya managed, voice breaking. "I just tried to help." She left her uniform in the locker and walked out through the service entrance. On the concrete steps leading down to the street, she sat in the November cold and finally let herself cry, not dramatic sobs, but quiet tears of exhaustion. The kind that came from a lifetime of being told in 1,000 subtle ways that her place was to be invisible and silent. She didn't hear footsteps until someone sat beside her. Mr. Raymond Turner held out a handkerchief cloth, not paper, the kind her grandmother used to carry. His weathered face was kind, patient. "Heard what happened," he said simply. "Load of garbage, if you ask me." Kenya took the handkerchief, wiping her eyes. "I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just kept cleaning and let the building burn." Raymond shook his head. "Kid, I've been working security for 43 years. You know how many disasters I've watched happen because someone saw something wrong but didn't speak up too many? But now I've lost my job. Maybe. Or maybe you've just found yourself in the middle of something bigger." He pulled out a worn thermos and poured coffee into the cap. "Here." They sat in silence, sharing the bitter warmth. Finally, Raymond spoke again. "Shun, that man in the gray jacket, did security show you his picture?" Kenya nodded. "Kurt Lyman, former IT employee." "Former," Raymond repeated meaningfully. "Meaning he was let go. Meaning he shouldn't have had access to that technical room." He paused. "But someone gave him that access. Someone currently employed. Someone who doesn't want anyone asking how he got in." The implication hit Kenya hard. "You think Miss Briggs—" "I don't think anything," Raymond said carefully. "But I've watched Chloe Briggs climb that corporate ladder for 8 years. She's ambitious, ruthless when needed, and she doesn't like anyone threatening her position." He looked at Kenya directly. "You made her look incompetent in front of the CEO. That's dangerous. So what do I do? You trust that the truth matters more than her office politics." He stood, joints creaking. "And you remember what my father told me, people like us see trouble before the important folks do. Don't ever apologize for that gift. Sometimes a shy girl speaking up is the bravest thing that happens all year." His words were simple but inspirational, a reminder that courage didn't require volume, just conviction. That afternoon, Damien sat in his office reviewing security footage for the 3rd time. Something wasn't adding up. The access logs showed no entry to the technical room in the past week, but the tampering was recent, within 48 hours. Patricia Chen, his head of security, stood beside his desk. "Someone scrubbed the primary logs. We're pulling data from the backup server now, but it takes time." "How long?" 6 hours, maybe 8. Damien's jaw tightened. "The cleaner who reported this, Kenya Carter. She was suspended this morning." Patricia nodded slowly. "I heard. Chloe's doing. Filed the report before you got in." "Can you reverse it?" "Not without evidence that the suspension was retaliatory. And even then—" Patricia hesitated. Sir, with respect, getting involved in a personnel dispute over a cleaner could complicate things politically. Damien looked up, expression hard. "She risked her job to warn us. Someone is punishing her for it. That's not politics, that's injustice." "I agree. But we need proof." "Then find it." By evening, they had their proof. The backup server revealed what primary logs had hidden. Kurt Lyman had entered the building 3 times in the past week using temporary contractor passes. Each pass issued by the same person, Chloe Briggs. More damning financial records showed a recent $15,000 deposit into Chloe's account from an offshore LLC. An LLC that traced back to Kurt Lyman's brother. Patricia set the documents on Damien's desk. Looks like Kurt paid Chloe for access. Probably promised her a cut of whatever he was planning to steal or extort. So she's not just covering incompetence, Damien said quietly. She's covering crimes, Stika, and she tried to silence the one person who could expose her. Patricia's expression was grim. Kenya didn't just stumble into something. She actively disrupted their plan. If she hadn't spoken up, Kurt would have finished his work, the system would have failed, and Chloe would have blamed faulty maintenance. No one would have looked deeper. Damien stood reaching for his phone. "Get Kenya back here now." "Sir, it's almost midnight." "I don't care. She helped save this company. She deserves to know what happens when someone tries to punish courage." What neither of them knew yet was that Kurt Lyman wasn't working alone. And the conspiracy went deeper than anyone imagined, deep enough to put lives at risk if they didn't act fast. Sometimes the greatest threat isn't the enemy you can see, it's the trusted face standing right beside you. Kenya's phone buzzed at 11:30 p.m., unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Ms. Carter, this is Patricia Chen from Hayes Sec Security. Mr. Hayes needs you to come back to the building immediately." Her stomach dropped. "Am I in more trouble?" "No, the opposite. Please come. I'll meet you at the main entrance." 20 minutes later, Kenya stood in Damien Hayes' office for the first time, while conscious of being there. The space was surprisingly understated modern, but not ostentatious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Damien stood by those windows, and when he turned, his expression was intense. "I owe you an apology," he said. "You tried to protect my company, and someone used that against you. That ends tonight." He explained everything: the tampering, Kurt's access, Chloe's involvement, the money trail. As Kenya listened, she felt vindication mixed with fear. She'd been right. But being right had made her a target. "There's more," Patricia added, pulling up security footage on the monitor. "We need you to look at this." The screen showed grainy footage from the basement near the emergency generator. Kurt Lyman appeared, checking his phone. Then a second figure joined him. Kenya leaned forward, squinting. "That's from last week. I remember because I cleaned that area after quarterly inspection." "Keep watching," Patricia urged. The second figure's face became clearer under a light. Kenya's breath caught. It wasn't Chloe Briggs. It was Daniel Morrison, the building's chief electrical engineer. A man Kenya had seen dozens of times, always polite, always professional. The man responsible for certifying that all electrical systems were safe. "He's been signing off on inspections without actually checking," Damien said quietly. "For at least 2 years. We pulled his records. Minor issues that should have been flagged were overlooked. Safety protocols quietly adjusted, all leading up to this, creating enough small vulnerabilities that Kurt's work would look like accumulated neglect rather than deliberate tampering." Kenya felt sick. How many people could have been hurt? If the electrical failure had cascaded into the data center during business hours, potentially dozens. The heat could have caused fires. The sprinkler system triggering would have sent people into stairwells, the same stairwells where emergency lighting had mysteriously been scheduled for maintenance. "This wasn't just sabotage," Kenya whispered. "This was planning to hurt people." Kurt wanted revenge. Morrison and Chloe wanted money. They didn't care who got caught in the middle. Damien's voice was flat, controlled fury beneath calm. The door opened. Marcus entered with Chloe Briggs between him and another officer. She looked furious and terrified. "Mr. Hayes, this is outrageous. You can't just detain me." You sold access to someone planning to cause catastrophic damage for $15,000. Damien cut her off, voice like ice. You falsified reports. And when someone tried to stop your accomplice, you attempted to destroy her livelihood to keep her quiet. He stepped closer. This stopped being your building the moment you betrayed everyone in it. Chloe's eyes darted to Kenya, and pure hatred flashed across her face. You're destroying my career over a cleaner's paranoid. She helped save lives. Damien interrupted. While you were counting blood money, there's a difference. Police arrived within 20 minutes. As they led Chloe away, she was still protesting, insisting this was a misunderstanding, anything but what it was, a deliberate choice to value money over human safety. Daniel Morrison was arrested at his home an hour later, and Kurt Lyman, when police surrounded his apartment, made one final desperate mistake. He tried to run. The chase ended on a rooftop. Not with violence, but with exhaustion, Kurt collapsing against an air conditioning unit, crying. When they brought him down, all he kept saying was, "They promised it would just be equipment damage, just insurance fraud. Nobody was supposed to get hurt." But people always got hurt. That was the part men like Kurt never understood until too late. Back at Sterling Tower, as dawn began lightening the sky, Damien and Kenya stood in the same hallway where she'd first noticed that sensory warning, the burnt smell that changed everything. The electrical room had been completely overhauled, every cable replaced, every junction box inspected and certified by outside contractors. You knew something was wrong, Damien said softly. Not just technically, you felt it. Kenya nodded slowly. My mother used to say that people who can't afford mistakes develop a different kind of awareness. We notice when things are off because we can't afford for things to be off. We don't have safety nets, so we pay attention differently. That's not just necessity, Damien replied. That's intelligence, observation. The kind of awareness most people lose when they become comfortable. He was quiet for a moment. I grew up in a neighborhood where we counted fire code violations because we knew inspectors wouldn't. Where we memorized which subway cars had broken doors because getting stuck meant missing work, and missing work meant losing everything. He looked at her directly. I know what it means to be invisible. To have people look through you like you're not there. Kenya met his eyes without flinching. Then why did you stop? Why did you listen? Because that janitor I told you about, the one who saved my life, he taught me something crucial. He showed me that the most important information often comes from the people with the least power. And if you want to stay alive in this world, you listen to them. It was a heartwarming revelation. Two people from different worlds discovering they shared the same foundation, the same understanding of what it meant to be overlooked. Most people in your position don't remember where they came from, Kenya said softly. Most people in my position forget on purpose. It's easier that way. Damien pulled something from his pocket, a security badge different from cleaning credentials. This one bore the HaysSec logo and her name with a new title, Facility Safety Liaison. Kenya stared at it, not understanding. You see things others miss. You notice patterns, problems, risks before they become disasters. That's not a cleaning skill, that's intelligence work. He held out the badge. I want you to work for HaysSec. Not cleaning offices, but helping us identify vulnerabilities. Real position, real salary, real respect. Her hands trembled taking the badge. But I don't have training education. You have something better. Instinct. And the courage to speak up when it matters, even when you're terrified. His voice softened. Everything else we can teach you. But that's something people either have or don't. And you have it. For the first time in 6 years, Kenya felt the weight of being seen, truly seen, not as a service provider, but as a person with value that extended far beyond her ability to clean. "I won't let you down," she whispered. "You already haven't," Damien said simply. When the invisible become visible, they don't just change their own story. They change what everyone else is forced to see. 3 weeks later, Kenya sat in a conference room on the 24th floor, wearing clothes she'd bought with her first real paycheck. Not a uniform, but professional attire that made her feel like she belonged in spaces she'd only cleaned. The room filled with department heads, security personnel, and building administrators. Damien stood at the head of the table presenting new, comprehensive safety protocols. "Last month's events revealed critical gaps in our security infrastructure," he began. "But more importantly, they revealed gaps in how we value different types of observation and intelligence. We've spent millions on digital security, while ignoring the human element, the people physically present in every corner of this building every day, noticing things our cameras don't catch." He gestured toward Kenya. "Ms. Carter helped save this facility because she trusted her instincts and had courage to speak up. Moving forward, every member of our facility, staff cleaners, maintenance security, all support personnel will be trained in threat recognition and given clear protocols for reporting concerns without fear of punishment." One of the executives, an older woman named Diane, raised her hand. "With respect, Mr. Hayes, won't this create a flood of false alarms if we empower everyone to report every little thing?" "Then we'll have more information," Damien interrupted firmly. "And information keeps people safe. Yes, we'll investigate concerns that turn out to be nothing. That's the cost of creating a culture where safety matters more than convenience." He paused. "I'd rather investigate 100 false alarms than miss the one real threat that costs lives." The room fell silent. Then Kenya surprised herself by speaking. "If I may," she said quietly, and every head turned. Her heart pounded, but she continued. "For 6 years, I walked through this building seeing things. Loose floor tiles that could trip someone, electrical outlets that sparked, doors that didn't close properly. Small things. But I never said anything because I didn't think it was my place. I didn't think anyone would listen." She took a breath. "But small things become big things. And by the time they're big, it's usually too late." Diane looked at her with new respect. "What changed? Why did you speak up that night?" Kenya thought about the burnt smell, the man in the gray jacket, Mr. Raymond's words, her mother's photograph. "Because I realized that if I saw danger and said nothing, I'd be choosing to let people get hurt, and I couldn't live with that choice." After the meeting, as people filed out, several approached Kenya with genuine questions about facility observations and safety concerns. She answered as best she could, still adjusting to the idea that her thoughts mattered to these people. Mr. Raymond appeared in the doorway, no longer in uniform but civilian clothes. He was retiring officially next week after 43 years. "Heard you gave quite the speech," he said with a warm smile. "I learned from the best," Kenya replied, hugging him. "Thank you for believing me when it mattered." "Kid, I always believed you. Sometimes people just need permission to believe in themselves." He patted her shoulder. "You're going to do good work here. Real work. The kind that matters." As he left, Damien approached, carrying 2 paper cups. "Thought you might need this. First big presentation is always draining." They walked to the windows overlooking the city. Kenya no longer felt like she was looking at a world she didn't belong in. She felt like she was part of building it. "Can I ask something?" she said. "That janitor who saved your life, did you ever see him again?" Damien smiled sadly. "No. He disappeared before I could properly thank him." "Moved away," someone said. I've looked for him over the years, but—" He shrugged. "Some people save your life, then vanish. All you can do is honor that gift by being the kind of person who would do the same for someone else. That's what you're doing, with me, with these new protocols." "I'm trying," Damien said simply. "Every day I'm trying." They stood in comfortable silence, watching sunset over the city. In the window's reflection, Kenya could see both of them no longer CEO and cleaner, but two people who understood that dignity wasn't conferred by title. It was inherent waiting to be recognized. "You changed my life," Kenya said softly. "By listening, by stopping when I spoke." Damien turned to her, expression serious but kind. "No, you changed your life by having courage to speak. I just had good sense not to walk away." This inspirational moment of mutual respect marked a turning point not just for Kenya, but for an entire organization learning to value every voice. Real change doesn't start with grand gestures. It starts with one person deciding another person's whisper matters as much as a shout. 2 months after that night, Kenya stood in Sterling Tower's lobby during morning rush hour. She was part of the scene now, not separate from it, carrying a tablet instead of cleaning supplies, wearing a badge that marked her as essential rather than invisible. She conducted safety walkthroughs, noted observations, and most importantly, checked in with cleaning staff who still worked the late shifts she'd once covered. Maria, her former colleague, waved as Kenya approached. "Look at you, Miha. All professional now." Kenya smiled. "Same person, just different uniform." "No," Maria said seriously. "Not the same. You stand different now, like you're allowed to take up space." It was true. Kenya had noticed it herself, the way she no longer automatically stepped aside when executives approached, the way she made eye contact, instead of looking down, the way she asked questions, instead of apologizing for existing. The main elevator opened, and Damien emerged with his usual purposeful stride. But when he saw Kenya, he detoured from his path. "Morning," he said. "How's the rotation going?" "Good. Found 3 potential safety issues on floors 12 through 15. Nothing urgent but worth addressing." "Send me the report. I'll have maintenance prioritize them." He paused. "There's a board meeting this afternoon. I'm proposing company-wide expansion of the safety liaison program. If approved, you'll be training others for this role across all our properties." Kenya's eyes widened. "You want me to train people? You're the model for what this position should be. Who better to define it?" He smiled. "Besides, you have a gift for helping people feel heard. That's the foundation of everything we're building." As he walked away, Kenya felt genuine pride. Not arrogance, but pride in work that mattered, in transformation she'd earned through her own courage. At lunch, she sat by the window, not in the back corner, where staff usually huddled, but at a prominent table. Next to her was her mother's photograph propped against her water glass. "I did it, Mama," she whispered. "I spoke up. And people listened." Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. "This is Raymond. Heard about the training program? Proud of you, kid. Trust your instincts, always?" She smiled, typing back, "Always." That evening, preparing to leave, Damien met her at the elevator. "Walk out together," he asked. They rode down in comfortable silence, the kind that came from mutual respect rather than awkward hierarchy. At the building entrance, he held the door, a small gesture that somehow meant everything. "Kenya," he said as they stepped into cool evening air. "That night when you whispered that warning, do you remember what scared you most?" She thought about it. That I'd be wrong. That I'd cause trouble over nothing. And now I'm more scared of staying silent when something's wrong. She looked at him directly. Because silence doesn't keep you safe. It just makes you complicit. Damien nodded slowly. That's the lesson most people never learn. You learned it the hard way. But I learned it, Kenya said firmly. And I won't forget. They parted at the corner, him toward the garage, where a driver waited her toward the subway she still took, because some habits were worth keeping reminders of where she'd come from and how far she'd traveled. As Kenya descended the subway steps, she passed a young woman in a cleaning uniform heading up toward the evening shift. Their eyes met briefly. The woman looked exhausted, invisible, resigned. Kenya paused, then turned back. "Excuse me?" The woman stopped, wary. "Yes. If you ever see something that doesn't feel right, anything, no matter how small, please report it. Your voice matters more than you know." The woman blinked, confused but touched. "Thank you. Thank you." As Kenya continued to the platform, she realized this was her purpose now. Not just identifying threats, but reminding people that their observations, their instincts, their whispered warnings had power. One voice could help save countless lives. One moment of courage could change everything. One shy girl finally being heard could teach the world how to listen.